Hello, this is Chris Porteous, and I have been helping the heavy metal team out with some editorial articles on the site lately, and I am so lucky to be joined today by John Stanisci. How you doing, sir?
Good, Chris. How are you today?
Not bad. I was just, I took the time and reread the Gladiatrix story from issue 1 and 2 today, and I was feeling inspired. I had questions, I had thoughts, and luckily, you were very receptive when I reached out. So I just wanted to take a little bit of time and chat about how you're feeling about things so far, and what you can tell me, if anything, about sort of the direction that the story's taking. And I just, I have some questions about the style and everything, and I'm so excited to talk about it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you for thinking of me, and I'm excited to talk about it.
You're very familiar to the people who've been following the story of the relaunch of the magazine so far. You got a origin story in the comic industry that's right out of a movie, and I encourage people to go find it because I don't want to make you tell it again. But it's unreal. You guys should find an interview with John on YouTube somewhere where he talks about it. But
Maybe we should do one separately. Maybe we should schedule.
Yeah, I just want to tease them, find some, give them something to look up. But it's for me that this is a crazy time, right? Like we just at SDCC, the issue 2 came out here, and you had Gladiatrix is about 10 pages, and each of these, I think, something like
16, that. 16 pages.
Okay, so 16 pages, and first of all, just give me a little bit of your history with the heavy metal magazine brand, and just like is this crazy for you to sort of realize this? Is it like how does it feel that as being part of a relaunch? It's not even just issue 321. There's been a rebirth and a refocus, and it's sort of different to be part of that, right?
Chris, it's I'm going to try my best to try to encapsulate in words what this moment is like for me right now in my career. And it's difficult because it's hard for me to, at times, even wrap my head around it. I first encountered heavy metal in 1981 as a little kid at Forbidden Planet in New York.
Nice.
And I started out, I started out in comics when I was trying to be in comics when I was about 19 years old, so a little while ago. And my dream was always to write and draw my own material. And that never quite happened for me for a whole lot of reasons. And that's maybe fodder for another day to talk about, because it has been an unusual journey for me. But, I have to say, I say this to my wife all the time, I've got the best gig in comics, period. Nobody has a better gig than I do right now. Maybe as good, but not better. I'm getting to write and draw my dream series that I co-created with a Hollywood screenwriter named Dan Gordon. Well, all right, we're jumping around a little bit here, but the genesis of Gladiatrix started a few years ago, before heavy metal, came along in my life. That's a whole other story, but it had been created and recreated, and I had been working on it and drawing a graphic novel about Gladiatrix just on my own. I mean, I was just doing it because I just loved the character. I grew up on not just on comics, but I loved all the epic fantasy stuff. I mean, I loved heavy metal. I loved Savage Sword of Conan and all the black and white magazines. I mean, I just loved that stuff. And I think I always wanted to draw a series like that. And so, Gladiatrix is that for me. And it's, so I was working on this when, two of the fellas involved in sort of the creation of this, Charlie and Vlas Parlapanides, who have the very successful series Blood of Zeus on Netflix, came to Dan and Gordon and myself and said, hey, heavy metal is going to relaunch, and they're looking for some stuff, and we thought of Gladiatrix. Would you be interested? And it was like, oh my God, And the thing that was amazing was I never thought of this because I had been working. There's about 50 pages of a graphic novel that's a separate story from what we're doing in the magazine that I put aside. I had been working on this for a while. And I really wasn't thinking about a publisher. I was just like, I want to draw this. I'm going to do it. And, I don't know. I'm just going to keep drawing this thing. Like I didn't have anybody, And when Heavy Metal was presented, it was like, oh my God, there couldn't be a more perfect publisher for this character, this world, this series. And what was amazing was when we pitched it to Heavy Metal, I think the feeling was immediately mutual. It was like, this is so on brand, it was so like, this is exactly right. So here we are, I'm right now, as we're recording this, I'm working on the 4th issue. So
very cool.
Yeah, issue 3 is done, and I'm working on the 4th. And, I'm struggling to find the words because it really is like, I couldn't have landed a better publisher. I mean, this is the preeminent science fiction, epic fantasy publisher magazine in the world. With my character that I'm getting to write and draw, everybody on the Heavy Metal side, from my editor to to Frank, to to Leah, everybody has been just, and Marshall and Jamie and everybody has just been 1,000% supportive of what I'm doing, where I'm going with the story. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I somehow have landed the absolute dream job. I mean, this it couldn't be, I really have the best gig in the industry right now is how I feel.
Yeah. Okay. So you said a lot of interesting stuff there that I want to dig into a little more. So the Gladiatrix is story. You said you were sort of 50 pages into a personal side project. Are you structuring it are you structuring it totally differently with like a serialized Heavy Metal release in mind? Because I'm just rereading the first 2 issues today. This feels real novel to me. It's a little bit of like Dante's Inferno vibes. It almost feels like it's happening in slow motion to me. As a Philistine, it's like a lot of beats don't really happen per issue, but there's a lot. It's like deep internal monologue combined with like some extremely kinetic action poses. Like it's very, I don't know. It feels novel and unique to me, and I wonder is your long form version that you were working on sort of a different vibe, and you sort of reformatted it mentally for Heavy Metal, or how are you looking at that?
So the one that I was working on before Heavy Metal is more of a definitive kind of origin story of the character and where the series will go from that. And we didn't want to do it in, basically when we finally did our deal with Heavy Metal, it was just in time to be in the first issue, the relaunch of the first issue. And it was like, I was asked, hey, can we do something for the magazine? So the idea was, okay, if we did some, and something that could be serialized for the magazine. So what I had didn't fit the magazine format right out the bat. And it was also like, well, why not tell a story that sets up the character, but teases out little pieces of what we may learn later about who she really is under the helmet, what her backstory is. And it just, we didn't plan this. It just sort of was because of the opportunity to be in the magazine.
Nice.
But since issue 1 to where we are now, and when I say we, I mean everybody on my team, and then, my editor and everybody with Heavy Metal, we've sort of figured out like, oh, this could be like, we could do like sort of a really epic serialized story for a while that little by little teases out. And since the origin story has been mapped out, we know where it's going, and we know where we can get to. And then you know, it's sort of like knowing the punchline of the joke, so it's like, oh, you could do a much more creative setup uh, than like, oh, hey, here's just the story, here's the origin, and all that kind of stuff. So I hope that answers the question without giving away too much.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know, like and we'll throw some additional images in over here, but structurally, it just feels novel to me. You have these wild like sword swinging, jumping through the air poses, and then just like it's almost like the character's internal monologue is happening on a different time scale than the action or something. Like I don't know, it's very it's very like airy and poetic, while also you just see these like strings of blood through the air. It's wild stuff, man. I've been really enjoying it.
Well, issue 3 I think is the best one we've done. Well, I say that every time, and because now I'm on issue 4 and I'm like, oh, issue 4 is the best. But we're finding, look, here's the thing about doing the installments in the magazine, which I absolutely love, and it's you want to talk about how I feel about things. Issue 2 had my name on the front cover, which I didn't know. I wasn't expecting that, and that was a moment. That was a moment, because I'm still very much emotionally connected to the 19-year-old kid that I was starting out. And, to have my name on the cover I don't know what to say. It was just a big moment for me, I did start out, my dream was to, be Frank Miller, not to compare, I'm not comparing myself, but that was my dream. I loved the writer artist guys, Frank Miller, John Byrne, even Joe Kubert, wrote and drew his, some of his best stuff. I always wanted to do that. And, it never quite worked out for me for a lot of reasons. I mean, I had a career and all that, but so yeah, to see my name on that cover, that was something.
What, and I'm sure it's not, it's not your first time doing the writer artist combo there, but can you talk to me a little bit about like when you're sort of in the grind, in the weeds of cranking out that serialized story, like how does it feel different when you have that sort of personal connection to the material from a writing perspective? Like does completing each page feel different than when you're telling someone else's story, and does that affect your process at all?
Well, it's a completely different process. I mean, the times I've penciled from other people's stories, you're not part of that process. The story is written and you're trying to figure out, how do you fulfill that in the best way? This has been very different, and it's been a little bit of a learning curve, because with each one, I don't start out writing a full script for myself. And I know that's recommended to do, and you probably should be done. But what I'm finding as I go is that the more I know exactly what happens in the story, beat for beat, I don't have to have all the dialogue, but just I know, the more I put the writer hat on, the better the art is and the clearer the storytelling is. So, for instance, and I think each one has gotten better because of that. I mean, issue 3, I had a much clearer understanding of exactly what the story was, exactly what was going to be on each page. And then, you can map it out. You can map out, well, 3 pages for this part, 2 for this beat, so on and so forth. So I'm getting better at it as I go. And I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think just, something about the way you're doing that process, like it's such a great compliment to the idea of heavy metal right now. Like as an anthology magazine, it just structurally and tonally feels different than anything else going on in there right now. And that's what you want when you open up that issue. You want that variety in it's not even just artistic style, it's like pacing and feeling. You want that variety when you open up a new issue of heavy metal, and I think it's a delightful compliment to that. There was one, hey man, I'm so excited that we're in the space where we can actually talk about what new and interesting things are going on in heavy metal. And I just wanted to share one little thing here. I was delighted to see this post from you where you and Dave were going around New York looking for comic shops, and like you're like, man, you know, I guess you're excited. You got your name on the cover. You're like, let's see if we can physically find heavy metal around New York, and
well, that
and
was
like,
yeah, that was a great night because you know, Dave and I've been working. Dave's my editor. He's the executive editor, executive editor at Heavy Metal, and he's the editor on Gladiatrix. And you know, we've Zoomed. We never have seen met in person. So he was in the city for a while, and we just decided to get together and have dinner, and we had a great time. And we were down near Forbidden Planet and Union Square in that area, and so we were like, hey, let's go over to Forbidden Planet, because I had already talked to them about possibly doing a signing. And then we were like, hey, let's go to Barnes and Noble, you know, to see the magazine on the rack. And so we found it there, and that was a lot of fun. And you know, I really loved doing that with him because, like, you know, I'm from a little bit of a different generation where, like, when I came up in comics, Marvel and DC were, first of all, both in New York, although Marvel's still in New York. But, you know, in those days, like, you had to go up to the office and hand your work in and that kind of thing, and you could hang out all day with the editors, and you'd meet your favorite, you know. So that kind of FaceTime is really cool. So we had a really good time that night.
yeah, honestly, like it was just, I mean, you can just tell. I mean, it sounds simple, but like just the idea that you guys want to sort of go over there and see that it was put out physically and it was easy to find. Like, you know, I think I mentioned earlier, you know, like I'm from Toronto, and like just the fact that we're again at a time where I can go into, and I've seen issue 1 and 2 like prominently on the shelves of 7 different local comic stores around Toronto, and how great that feels to see it come back. Because like I'm honestly not sure if I believed it was going to for a while. I was like, is there still a place for this? Like, what, you know, like from an economics perspective, print size, like what's the audience looking like after it's gone away for a little over a year? I don't understand. That's all above my pay grade, right? But like, it's so good to sort of see it exist in that environment again, and like retailers having faith in it enough that it's like, I'm going into just the average, it's not the number one comic stores in Toronto, but they got 3-4 different covers every time an issue comes out. Yeah. And they seem to have done well on pre-orders, and you can just see the joy on you two guys at the store there, seeing it in person. That's good stuff, man. It was very fun to see.
Listen, you have to remember something, that I'll just speak for myself. I know it's true of most comic book creators, is, you know, we sit in a room by ourselves all day long. You know, so it's not like there's a parade every day when I draw a page, you know. And there is a thing that I think is real, and I think it's very worthwhile to be like, hey, let's go walk into a bookstore, and it's like, oh, these aren't just drawings I'm doing here in my room. Like, this exists in the world, in this big, you know, in this famous, you know, magazine, and it's in, you know, all the bookstores, and it's in different countries. And, you know, I don't want to say I lose sight of it because I know it, but it's just not, it's not your everyday reality. You know, your everyday reality is you get up, you know, you get to work, you work all day, you know, you don't have that. So that I think it's a healthy thing to go and say, like, oh, there's, my book exists for real. It doesn't just exist in my little bubble here in my room, you know, my studio.
Yeah. So. And I mean, and you know, it's so like as somebody who this magazine has really like sort of impacted my life creatively, and like, for, you know, it's so weird to even be like satellite involved now, as somebody, you know, had the posters up in high school in my room and all that stuff. You know, it's a wild time, and you know, and you have had, you know, you've had a very prolific career, done a lot of work for Marvel and DC, and like just hearing you say this is sort of the best you've sort of felt about a project, and it's like your dream project, and you're really doing what you want to be doing, having a story serialized in heavy metal. It's just like that. It just feels right, man. It's good stuff. You know, I like
it is. And I'll tell you, what you said seems to be the sentiment everybody I've been working with at Heavy Metal, which is they were fans of this, and it means this is their dream job. You know, when I was hanging out with Dave, you know, he was talking about this was his dream job, was to be an editor at Heavy Metal. I mean, everybody, you know, nobody's just nobody's doing it just for the gig. I mean, everybody's in this because they really loved what heavy metal was when we were all younger, and everybody understands what it means to the people who are still fans. So I think that's another component of why, you know, this new relaunch has had success and has gotten a lot of goodwill around it. I think it comes across in the magazine that everybody really cares. You know, everybody really cares, and it's like everybody's trying to like be faithful to what this magazine has been, and then try to find new ways to take it forward. You know, so everybody's been really passionate about it, which is great, which has really been great. Here's what it's like being a part of this new iteration of heavy metal as a creative person. On one hand, it's like, you know, I've said this already several times. I've got the greatest gig in comics, hands down, no question. I wouldn't trade it. I really wouldn't trade this for really any other position in the industry right now. On the other hand, when the magazine comes in and you open it up and you start seeing some of the other talent that's in the magazine, you know, it's like, oh boy, I better really bring the A game, because you've got so many talented people, so many great writers, and some of the art in here is just incredible. I mean, it's like the double-edged sword. It's like, man, I love being here. It's fantastic. And then there are moments of like, oh my God, everybody's doing such a great job. You do feel intimidated. You do feel like I better find ways to do a better job. And then the rabbit hole that you just opened up, what I fall down into, is also like, you think of the history. You think of the artists who have famously worked at heavy metal. And it's like, well, you don't want to be the one who doesn't live up to that in any way, you know? So all those things come into play. And then, you know, what ends up happening is I kind of go through this journey in my head of all of that. And then it's like, okay, I got to put all of that out of my head, and I got to sit down and draw the best pages I can. And that's it. I will say that, again, you know, I'm on the 4th issue now, and I do feel like every issue I've done or I'm doing, I do learn. I do like see like where I got things right and where there's room for a lot of improvement. So I feel like each one I'm finding better ways to draw it, you know, better shots to take in terms of like what the actual shots are that I'm using, you know, that kind of thing. So I feel like, all right, each one I'm upping my game, and at some point I'll do something really, really great. But you know, I wanted to say something earlier about what you said about my career, my path. You know, for many years was known as an inker and a finisher in comics, meaning I worked over other people's work. And I wound up, you know, stopping doing that at a certain point. But, you know, the best part about doing that from the many years that I did was I did have the opportunity to work with and work over, you know, really some of the best artists in comic books. I mean, I've done a lot of work with people like Dennis Cowan, and I mean, I worked with Jackson Geis at one point. I did an Alex Ross project at one point. I did, you know, I'm going over the history of my career here, but you know, a lot. So, you know, I'm saying it because I feel like when I sit down to work now you know, I'm penciling and inking all my own stuff. I know that a big factor in my library of knowledge comes from all the work I did over other people, and seeing how they move the figure around, or how they would set up a shot, how they'd light a shot. You know, I did a year with Rick Leonardi, which really impacted me many years ago. And it just, you know, the pages would come in and you just see how he draws, you know, and I took something from everybody and put it in the quiver, you know, so that, and what's funny about it too is there's many times, you know, because I'm working all the time. I'm working every day on the pages. It's not like, you know, when I come to a page or a problem, I go, oh, how would this one do it? You just come up with an answer, and then you go, oh, wait a minute. I think I saw so-and-so do that when I was working with him, you know, 20 years ago or something. So it's all there. And I feel like, I guess I'm saying this because I don't want it to sound like, oh, I was so unhappy for so long. I feel like, and now I have this, and it's more like I can see how it's been a long journey, but the steps that I took really, really all helped me deliver now when the opportunity came into my life.
Yeah, well, I can say as as someone who's not an artist in that way at all. I do a little bit of camera work, but I don't draw, never have. As someone who's a fan of the magazine and a reader, I think I see what everyone on the editorial team sees, and that Gladiatrix is just this. It's like a puzzle piece in an awesome set. It's like the old ads where you're stepping into another universe for a couple hours when you pick up this issue, and you're transported to 2 or 3 different dimensions. And this story it feels fresh and different. I had a great time rereading those today, and it's tonally and stylistically, it's very interesting. But I'm like, contextually, I'm not even, and I think you're sort of stringing the reader along a little bit, sort of elaborating what's going on narratively, but I'm not entirely sure, you know what I mean? It's like there's a lot of metaphysical stuff going on, and we don't really know, as a reader who's just gotten through issue 2, we don't really know the rules of the universe per se yet. So it's sort of fun seeing that laid out little one brick at a time, and I'm sort of starting to put the worldview of that universe together, and I'm really enjoying it.
Well, that's amazing, and I thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that, and I'll tell you that I don't want to give away too much here, but it occurred to us and me, as we were entering into this thing with heavy metal, that you have a character named Gladiatrix, which is the female tense of gladiator. I think and I could be wrong about this, but I think the natural expectation is, well, this character is going to fight in an arena, and it's going to be, stuff we've seen. It's going to be, other gladiators and that kind of thing. And, I think there is an obligation at some way to have that, but I just feel very strongly this character and the world that we're building can be so much more than that. And, so where issue 2 ends up, my hope was that it would be like, oh, she's fallen out of this arena, and we're not really sure where she is, and what this realm is. And what I can tell you is, over the next several episodes in the magazine, it's good. There's going to be some surprises. There's going to be like, oh, didn't think we were going there, and teases about the larger story. And again, I'm hoping it's going to be elements of, oh, what is that? Oh, didn't expect that. So there's a real look. I'm a fan of epic fantasy, and I said this earlier. I grew up on this stuff. I read this stuff my whole life as a kid, and I'm aware very keenly that I've got an opportunity here to tell a real big epic story on a very large canvas. The canvas being, Heavy Metal magazine that has the reach that it does. So I can tell you, everybody involved is like, let's take the gloves off and just go for it. Let's just go for a big epic adventure that has a lot of surprises, and at the same time fulfills what we would expect from a character named Gladiatrix, So that's kind of the vibe of what we're doing right now.
Very cool. Honestly, John, I am so appreciative of your time today. And, one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you is because in our previous interactions, I really got the sense that you are super excited to be in this place right now doing this story, and it means the world to you, and that vibe is contagious, man. I'm telling you, and I'm so glad somebody like you is involved in the magazine right now, getting this story out there, and I really appreciate your time, sir.
No, thank you, Chris. And just to wrap it up, that what you just said is really important to me. That, in fact, it's the most important thing, because part of the decision on all our ends to partner with Heavy Metal for this project was to find the right home for it, which heavy metal clearly was, but to be around other, people on the publishing side who would share the enthusiasm. And, we're all just trying to make an impact. We really want to connect with this character, and we're, everybody's giving 1,000% to this. I mean, I have to give a shout out to David Barron, my colorist. I mean, I've worked with David a long time at DC Comics. We've done a lot of books together, but boy, is he bringing it in the coloring. And wait till you see issue 3. I think what he did is going to knock your socks off. Tom Napolitano, our letterer, is amazing. Everybody's just bringing the A game, and we just have a lot of passion and enthusiasm for this. So.
Very cool. You love to see it. And, everybody out there, go ahead and follow John on Instagram. And is there anywhere else you want to direct people to follow along with what you're up to?
Instagram's probably the best, because I think that's where, I'll be posting a lot more stuff in the days ahead, in the weeks ahead. So Instagram is good. At John Stanisci. Yeah. Oh, there it is. You got it. Okay.
Very cool. All right, John. Thanks very much for your time. Hope to talk again soon.
All right. Thank you, Chris.